Imagine being a hardworking woman, doing your job quietly behind the scenes, until one day, your boss threatens to kill you. That's exactly what Capricorn Clark told the jury this week about her time working for Sean Diddy Combs.
Capricorn wasn't just any employee. She was part of his inner circle, his trusted assistant. Later, Cassie Ventura's creative director. She saw everything. And now she's risking it all to speak her truth. In the courtroom, she calmly described years of abuse, fear, and manipulation. She said Diddy threatened her life, forced her to take a lie detector test, and even dragged her into a plan to confront and possibly kill rapper Kid Cudi. Why did she stay silent so long? What pushed her to finally speak out? And what did she witness the night Diddy went looking for Kid Cudi, with a gun in hand? If you've ever wondered what really goes on behind the closed doors of power, money, and fame, stay with me.
Because once you hear her testimony, you'll never look at Diddy the same way again. So let's break this all down. We were expecting Capricorn to testify after Kid Cudi's emotional appearance last week, especially since he mentioned her by name.
But before we get into the details of her testimony, who is Capricorn Clark? How did she even end up working with Diddy? Right, Capricorn Clark is someone we've heard about more than once in this case. She worked for Diddy for several years, and today she broke down exactly what roles she held over time. She first joined Diddy's circle, what many call the bad boy orbit, around 2004 to 2006. Back then, she started as his assistant. Later, she was promoted to director of marketing and worked with the women's division at Sean John. Then she moved into global branding, a position she held from 2008 to 2012. After some time away, she returned in 2016 and worked as Cassie's brand director from 2016 to 2018. So, she basically climbed the ladder, starting as an assistant and eventually running Cassie's image on red carpets and in the press.
And we also know she was one of the people who went with Diddy to Kid Cudi's house, along with a security guard. At that time, Diddy was angry that Cassie was dating Kid Cudi. That's why Capricorn's testimony is such a big deal. She's connected to so many parts of this story. She's tied into different corners of Diddy's world. And from what I understand, she started her testimony by telling the jury that on her first day, Diddy threatened her life. Yes, and she said that was because she used to work with Suge Knight, who's famously Diddy's rival. She explained that Suge Knight is the father of her best friend's children. She didn't name the friend, but she did say she once signed with Death Row Records before ever working at Bad Boy. So when she got hired at Bad Boy, she knew there'd be tension. According to Capricorn, Diddy confronted her about her past on her very first day as his assistant. This happened in 2004.
She said that Diddy, Capricorn, and one of his security guards, Paul Albert, also known as Uncle Paulie, went to Central Park that day. Now, Central Park sounds peaceful, but according to her, the conversation they had there was anything but. She said Uncle Paulie looked intimidating, like a linebacker, huge and quiet. While they stood there, she claims Diddy calmly told her he'd have her killed if she had any connection to Suge Knight. When she said this in court, people were stunned, especially because Diddy looked nothing like the flashy star we see online. In court, he wore sweaters, slacks, and an undershirt. He looked almost like a schoolteacher. So to hear that he once threatened her life, it was shocking. She said that while making the threat, Diddy was calm. Uncle Paulie didn't say a word. He just stood there, silent and serious. Capricorn said she answered the threat by saying, "We'll have to see."
Looking back, she admitted she should have been more honest about her past with Suge Knight. She said she didn't fully explain the connection because she didn't think it would matter. But clearly it did. The bad blood between Diddy and Suge Knight goes way back. Suge was the face of Death Row Records on the West Coast, while Diddy and Biggie led Bad Boy on the East Coast. And that rivalry turned violent over the years. Inside the courtroom, the jury was also shown photo exhibits to help tell the full story. One photo showed D-Rock, who was Biggie's friend, and someone Capricorn said was close to the crew. Another photo showed Ruben, D-Rock's younger brother, who became part of Diddy's circle after Capricorn was hired. There was also a photo of Roger Bonds, another security guard, who started working around the same time as Capricorn. These photos were already entered into evidence earlier by prosecutors. Then Capricorn was asked if she'd ever seen Diddy with a gun.
She said yes, especially during the incident that involved the kidnapping. She also talked about an earlier event involving 50 Cent, where Diddy seemed angry about public back and forth between them. Capricorn said Diddy told Chris Lighty, who worked with 50 Cent, "I don't like back and forth. I like guns." That line stood out, and it seemed like the prosecutors used it to show a pattern of threats and violence during Diddy's reign. For a racketeering charge, prosecutors must show he ran a criminal group through fear, violence, and illegal activity. That's why they're focusing on his entourage, his bodyguards, the weapons, and the intimidation. And didn't Capricorn also say she was forced to take a lie detector test? Yes, she testified that in the first few months of working for Diddy, she was accused of stealing a very expensive watch and necklace. The jewelry was on loan from a man known as Jacob the Jeweler. She said Diddy gave her the jewelry to hold on to.
But later, she noticed it was missing and called security right away. When she told Diddy, he told her to meet with Uncle Paulie again. Capricorn said Uncle Paulie questioned her for a long time about the missing jewelry. She said he even came to her home and searched through her things. This matched what David James said last week, that Diddy's security also searched his hotel room. Then the jury was shown a photo of the Bad Boy Worldwide office. At the time, this office was supposed to be their new headquarters. But when Capricorn went there, it was basically an empty building. She said someone locked her inside from the outside. She had no way to get out. Uncle Paulie brought her up to the 6th floor. There, she met a man she didn't recognize. She didn't know his name, but she described him.
She said he was very large. So big, she said he was like 6 of me. And he was smoking and drinking coffee during their meeting. This unknown man told her she had to take a lie detector test. He warned that if she didn't take the test, they'd throw her into the East River. Right after she said that, the defense objected and the judge called for a sidebar. We couldn't hear what was said during the sidebar because of the white noise they play in court. But after the sidebar ended, Capricorn was asked if she thought the man's threat was real. She said yes. She believed he meant it, and she was terrified. So she agreed to take the polygraph. She said the questions were things like, "Did you steal the jewelry?" or "Did you plan to steal it?" But the results came back inconclusive. She said that was because she was so scared, too nervous to sit still.
And honestly, anyone who's ever taken a lie detector knows if you're anxious, it messes with the results. Capricorn said she was left alone in that empty building all day, taking the test again and again. She couldn't leave because Uncle Paulie told her she wasn't allowed to. The door had been locked from the outside. The next day, Uncle Paulie came back and made her do the test all over again. This happened 5 days in a row. Each day, she spent hours inside that abandoned office strapped to a lie detector. She kept going back because she wanted to prove she was innocent. She said she never stole anything and didn't go to the police because she'd signed an NDA. The defense objected when she mentioned the NDA, and the judge sustained it. So the jury didn't get to hear that part. Capricorn said Diddy never checked on her the whole time. And after the 5th day, Uncle Paulie told her she could return to work the following Monday.
To this day, she said she doesn't know where the missing jewelry ended up, or if it was ever found. And even after all that, she kept working for Diddy, which tells you something about how scared she must have been. This all fits into the bigger picture the prosecution is trying to paint, that Diddy ran his business like a criminal empire. The lie detectors, the threats, the bodyguards. And remember, Cassie also talked about being threatened, which supports her claims of coercion, an important part of the sex trafficking charge. So when people ask, why didn't they just leave? Well, look at what they were surrounded by. And Capricorn isn't the only one saying these things. Other witnesses have spoken about Diddy's alleged abuse and threats too. This adds even more weight to the case. But also, doesn't Capricorn's story support kidnapping charges too? Maybe even forced labor. Exactly. That's what the prosecutors will try to prove.
Now let's get into what she said about Kid Cudi. We already knew she'd mention him, especially since he testified last week. And we know that Cassie and Kid Cudi were briefly seeing each other during a break in her relationship with Diddy. So what happened there? Capricorn said that in December 2011, right before the holidays, Cassie asked if Kid Cudi could join them for a hike. Capricorn told her it was a bad idea. And it sounds strange, right? Why would a hike be a problem? But Capricorn explained she was afraid Diddy would find out. She said Diddy was paying for her phone at the time, so he might see who she was texting or calling. Capricorn even took Cassie to buy a burner phone because she was afraid they'd all be killed if Diddy found out. The defense objected to that statement, and the judge sustained it. But during that part of the testimony, Diddy could be seen shaking his head at the defense table.
In court, the gallery looked shocked because this was yet another death threat being described. Then, Capricorn said one day she heard loud banging at her apartment door. She looked through the peephole and saw Diddy outside. He was pacing and looked furious. Capricorn said she opened the door and saw Diddy wearing a button-up shirt, a sweater and slacks that were torn, showing his underwear. But most importantly, he was holding a gun. He asked her, "Why didn't you tell me? And who is Scott?" Stop being Scott Mescuddy, Kid Cudi's real name. Then Diddy said, "Get dressed. We're going to go kill this N-word." Capricorn said she didn't want to go, but he made her. He tucked the gun into his waistband and told her to get in the car. She said Diddy had never been to her home before, so the defense questioned how he even got into the building. Inside the car, Diddy placed the gun in his lap. Ruben, also called Rue, was driving.
Capricorn said she couldn't leave the car, and everything was happening too fast. They drove to Kid Cudi's home in the Hollywood Hills. At this point, the jury was shown a Google map showing the route they took. Capricorn said, "That's not the route I would have taken," but that's what was presented. Then they showed a photo of Kid Cudi's front door. Capricorn said she didn't even know if he was home. She stayed in the car while Diddy and Ruben went inside. While waiting, Capricorn called Cassie using the burner phone. She said, "Cassie, what the f***?" and told her she was outside Kid Cudi's house, apparently brought there to kill him. Capricorn had even renamed Cassie's contact in her phone to her best friend's name to keep Diddy from finding out. On the phone, she could hear Kid Cudi in the background. She told Cassie to stop him because if he came home, he might be killed. She didn't know what would happen if he showed up.
And Diddy came out of the house and saw Capricorn on the phone. He yelled, "Who the f*** are you talking to?" He called the number back and realized Cassie had a burner phone and got furious. Capricorn said that right then, Kid Cudi pulled up to the house. But when he saw them, he sped off. Diddy, Ruben, and Capricorn chased after him. Capricorn was still in the car. Ruben was driving. Diddy was in the passenger seat. They followed him until they lost him. Eventually, the police showed up at Kid Cudi's house. Diddy, Capricorn, and Ruben went to the Key Club afterward. Diddy told Capricorn to get Cassie. Cassie answered and agreed to be picked up. Capricorn said she seemed calm when she got the call. Diddy then told Cassie to tell Kid Cudi not to report the incident to the police. He didn't want his name mentioned at all.
Capricorn testified that if Kid Cudi had reported it, Diddy might have killed all of them, including Cassie, Capricorn, and Kid Cudi himself. She said Kid Cudi was shocked. Afterward, Diddy took Cassie, Capricorn, and Ruben back to his home. And what happened next was horrifying. Diddy physically attacked Cassie. According to Capricorn, he never used his hands, but he kicked her over and over again. Cassie curled up on the floor in the fetal position. Capricorn said Diddy kicked her so hard he knocked her into the street. Cassie was silently crying while it happened. Ruben was there, but he didn't step in. Capricorn said Diddy warned her. If she got involved, he'd fuck her up too. She didn't hold back on the witness stand. She repeated the exact words he used. And just hearing that was shocking. Capricorn said she ended up calling D-Rock, Ruben's brother, to ask for help. She also noticed that Ruben's phone was ringing. But he wasn't answering it, and he wasn't helping.
That's when she decided to call Cassie's mother, Regina Ventura. She told Regina, "I can't call the police, but you can." She explained that the fear Diddy created made it impossible for her to go to the authorities. And she said she didn't call police that night because the whole mission was to stop Kid Cudi from going to the police. So in her mind, calling the police would have gone against what they were trying to prevent. But honestly, that reason felt a little strange. Still, the point is clear. She didn't speak up, and neither did anyone else. Ruben didn't step in. None of Diddy's security did either. And this is something we've heard again and again. People saw what was happening to Cassie, but no one helped. Capricorn said later on, she went to visit Cassie at her hotel. Inside the room, Cassie's things were everywhere. Broken, thrown around, completely destroyed.
Then the court was shown another exhibit. It was a message Cassie had sent to Capricorn, with her mother copied in. In it, Cassie said that Diddy was threatening to release 2 sexually explicit videos of her around the holidays. This was also in December 2011, and it was clearly tied to her brief relationship with Kid Cudi. Those were the major points in Capricorn's testimony about what happened with Kid Cudi. And again, it all supports the idea of kidnapping. It also confirms things Cassie had already said, especially the part about how no one stepped in to stop it. Dawn Richards said the same thing, that Cassie was beaten in front of celebrities like Usher and Jimmy Iovine. And still, nobody said a word. This helps show the kind of power Diddy had over people. Because if you're wondering why Cassie didn't speak up, well, this explains a lot. Prosecutors want the jury to see how deep Diddy's control ran.
And we haven't even gotten to the arson charge yet. Like when Kid Cudi said his car was set on fire. We'll come back to that. But first, Capricorn shared more about what it was like to work for Diddy every day. She talked about long hours and impossible demands. She said she hated working there. And that's something we've heard from others, like George Kaplan and David James. Now Capricorn was saying it too. She said as Diddy's personal assistant, she barely slept. A good night meant 4 hours of sleep. A bad night, just 2. She said the stress was so bad, she started losing her hair. Her doctor told her she needed to calm down, find a way to reduce her stress. She was making around $65,000 a year at the time. But when she went to HR to ask about overtime, because she was working way more than 8 hours a day, they did some math.
HR told her she was actually owed $80,000 in unpaid overtime. But instead of paying her, Diddy looked at the document and tore it up. It was just another example of how he treated his employees, she said. She also talked about hotel stays, a topic that came up in other testimonies too. Capricorn said she was the one booking hotel rooms for Diddy as early as 2004, even before he started dating Cassie. Back then, he was still seeing Kim Porter, and he'd stay with her in hotels about once a week. Capricorn said she had to pack and unpack his things. She also revealed some of the fake names Diddy used when booking rooms. One of them was Jackie Starr, a name Cassie later used as well. Others included Frank Black and Frank White. Capricorn said one of her jobs was unpacking Diddy's toiletry bag, a Louis Vuitton bag. Inside that bag, there wasn't just hygiene stuff. She found drugs too. Ecstasy was one of them, and she said Diddy used it a lot.
Ecstasy was one of them, and she said Diddy used it a lot. She also unpacked a camera box. Inside it was a camera, but also things like baby oil and lube. And this was way back between 2004 and 2006, before Cassie was even in the picture. She said Diddy brought those same items to every hotel stay. He'd stay for days, and she was in charge of cleaning up after. She said sometimes baby oil would be splattered all over the hotel room, even on the walls. And listening to her, you start to realize that the personal assistants before and after her all did the same things. Their roles didn't change much. Now, from a racketeering angle, prosecutors are trying to show this wasn't just a wild lifestyle. It was an organized criminal setup. They want the jury to see Diddy as someone who built a team around him to help carry out illegal activities. He didn't do it all alone.
That doesn't mean everyone on his team committed crimes, but it shows how the whole operation worked. Then the court returned to the arson part of the case, about Kid Cudi's car being set on fire. Capricorn said that an arson investigator reached out to her in summer 2012. That's about 6 months after someone reportedly threw a Molotov cocktail into Kid Cudi's car. Capricorn said Kid Cudi was the one who gave the investigator her name. But when the investigator called her, she hung up. She didn't want to talk. Later, she said Diddy asked her why she hadn't told him about Kid Cudi talking to the police. And during that conversation, she said Diddy threatened to cut her face and kill her. She claimed D-Rock and Cassie were both there when Diddy made that threat. After that moment, Capricorn said her relationship with Cassie changed. Capricorn also said she went to HR and told them what happened.
She told Harve Pierre and the HR department that Diddy kidnapped her and threatened to kill Kid Cudi. But instead of launching an investigation, they gave her a 30-day notice to leave her job. She was fired. HR said she hadn't recorded her vacation time properly. Capricorn said that was just an excuse, a cover-up. She believed she was being pushed out because of what she told HR. After losing her job, she also lost her 401k, her insurance, her car, and her home, all of which were paid for by Bad Boy. She said Diddy told her she'd never work again and that she had no friends. Capricorn had lined up another job, but it fell through. She struggled to find work. In October 2012, she and Diddy reached a settlement. We don't know how much she got, but we do know that there's no civil case currently pending. Part of a settlement included Diddy agreeing to give her good job references. But according to her, that never happened.
That became a big topic during her cross-examination. The defense spent a lot of time pressing her about those job references and her connection with Cassie. They wanted to know more about her relationship with Cassie and whether she actually liked or supported her. It was interesting to hear Capricorn talk about that in her own words, because during parts of her testimony, you really couldn't tell if she cared about Cassie or not. Kid Cudi described Capricorn as a great friend to Cassie. But based on Capricorn's tone, it almost sounded like she blamed Cassie for getting her fired. She seemed bitter about it. Once the lunch break ended, the focus returned to her past with Cassie. They touched on how Capricorn met her, which happened when Cassie was still dating Ryan Leslie, her ex-boyfriend and former producer. This was before Cassie even signed with Bad Boy. Capricorn said they didn't always get along. She claimed the problem started in 2008, right when Cassie began dating.
She said Cassie changed from a sweet model to a demanding girlfriend. Capricorn also commented on Cassie's talent. She said Cassie had some talent, but wasn't truly talented. Her words, not ours. Capricorn described Cassie as more of a studio artist, not someone who could perform live well. Cassie even admitted that during her own testimony, that her early performances were rough. Capricorn said the nerves were a big issue for Cassie. Then the defense brought up Cassie's drug use and asked whether it affected her ability to perform. Capricorn said Cassie worked hard in the beginning, but not so much once they moved to LA. This was around 2009. She explained that Diddy and his companies supported Cassie a lot, giving her stylists, choreographers, everything she needed. The defense tried to show that Cassie wasn't struggling at all, that she had access to the best. Capricorn was asked whether other artists at Bad Boy got less attention than Cassie. She said yes.
The defense went through a timeline, asking about 2007 to 2009. Capricorn confirmed that during that period, Cassie got most of the attention. Later, Bad Boy signed other artists. By 2016, Capricorn said Diddy started pulling back and supporting Cassie from a distance. Interestingly, that's also when Capricorn was hired as Cassie's brand manager. She was the one in charge of Cassie's public image again. Then they showed a photo of Cassie at the MTV Video Music Awards with neon-colored hair. Capricorn said she created that look to push Cassie's image into the future, away from her old style. They bounced around a bit with the timeline. The defense brought up January 13th, 2012, about 3 weeks after the kidnapping incident. Capricorn said she was still acting as Cassie's representative at the time. The defense pointed out that she was still handling business emails and work calls, suggesting she wasn't traumatized.
They wanted the jury to believe she was moving on with life as usual, not someone who had just gone through something terrifying. Then they jumped back to summer or fall of 2011. They talked about how Bad Boy paid for Capricorn to live in the Hillcrest apartments. Cassie started staying with her there when Diddy was busy. Cassie didn't want to be in hotels anymore and preferred staying with someone she trusted. And from there, they circled back to the Kid Cudi situation, but this time from the defense's point of view. The defense seemed to focus on one thing, making Cassie look like she wasn't really a victim. They were trying to say she relied on Diddy, used his resources, and wasn't being controlled at all. They made it seem like Diddy wasn't hurting her career. Instead, he was helping it. And they were trying to flip the story, turning Cassie from a victim into someone who used Diddy for fame and support.
Another big thing the defense pointed out was that Capricorn kept working for Diddy, even after everything she said she saw. They brought up an email where she was asking Diddy for forgiveness. Yes, exactly. There were several emails shown in court, one after another, so it was hard to write them all down. But here's what we know. Some of these emails were from 2014 and 2015, years after she'd been fired. One email had a subject line that read something like, "My boss Sean Combs and by default Harve Pierre are mad at me for going on vacation," being petty as usual. Another email from September 2014 had her checking in on Diddy, asking if he and his mom were okay. Then, on January 5th, 2015, she sent another message saying, "Sending you blessings and love. Hope to see you this year." A month later, on February 28th, 2015, she emailed again, saying, "Hope you're well. The grace period for being mad at me has gone on too long."
There was also a birthday email on November 4th, 2015, where she said, "Happy birthday and good luck with your project." That one was pretty long, and one part stood out. She wrote, "She must have wanted me gone," referring to Cassie. That was a surprising moment, because from Cassie and Kid Cudi's testimony, it seemed like Capricorn was her friend. But Capricorn clearly believed that Cassie was the reason she lost her job. She said after she got fired, Diddy blacklisted her from the music industry. That meant no more opportunities, no way back in. And the defense really leaned into that. They argued that despite everything, despite being allegedly kidnapped, threatened, and witnessing abuse, Capricorn still wanted to work with Diddy again. Even years later, at the end of the cross-examination, they showed that Capricorn asked for a recommendation as recently as 2021. She even considered working with Diddy again just last year. Capricorn got emotional explaining this to the jury.
She said she just wanted to take care of her son. That's why she wanted the job back. She needed the money, the stability, the career she once had. She said she wanted her life back. She broke down on the witness stand. She was crying so hard, the judge almost called for a break, but didn't. She just kept going. So what happened in 2024? Why did she want to return to work for Diddy just last year? Well, in April 2024, Capricorn met with Diddy's legal team. She said she had already hired her own lawyer in December 2023 after Cassie filed her lawsuit. Capricorn wasn't mentioned in Cassie's suit, by the way. She made that clear. She said she wanted to hear Diddy's side of the story. A few months later, she sat down with Diddy's lawyers, Tenny Garagos and Mark Nipolo. This was after both of Diddy's homes were raided by federal agents.
At that point, Diddy hadn't been arrested yet, but he was facing a lot of legal trouble and bad press. Capricorn said she thought it might be a good time to come back, because her return might look good for him. She said she had a bit of name recognition, and it would seem like someone who had been there from the beginning was back to support him. She proposed becoming his chief of staff. That stood out, because we know Christina Coram also held that role at one point. But Capricorn said the lawyers told her there wasn't really a spot for her anymore. They said Diddy was under criminal investigation, so it wouldn't work. The prosecution jumped on this part of the story when they got a chance to question her again. They reminded the jury that as part of her 2012 settlement, Diddy agreed to give her positive job references. But Capricorn said she struggled to find work for years.
She was emotional again as she described all the jobs she almost got, but didn't. One of those jobs was with 50 Cent. She said she was supposed to start managing him, but the day before she was set to begin, his manager, Chris Lighty, passed away. Another job opportunity came from Jimmy Iovine. He called her in 2012 to discuss jobs, but the meeting ended up being about something else entirely. She said Jimmy warned her to leave Diddy alone. It wasn't a real job interview. She also tried to get hired by the talent agency CAA. But Diddy and his mentor, Andre Harrell, followed her around, trying to talk her out of pursuing legal action. From 2012 to 2015, she said she looked everywhere for work. She believed she had been blacklisted. Eventually, she switched to consulting work just to survive. She explained all this to show why she wanted to go back. In her eyes, working for Diddy again could help remove that blacklist. She figured if she was back in his circle, maybe others would stop freezing her out. It was wild to hear, because we've seen this pattern before. Even people who say they were abused or threatened still felt connected to Diddy. Some of them even defended him later. And that's what made her testimony so complicated. It's the same kind of complicated testimony we saw with Cassie. The prosecutors had to bring in a psychologist just to explain it. How someone could say they were a victim of sex trafficking, yet still stay with the person? How could someone claim they were raped, but still have consensual sex with him afterward? Capricorn's story isn't the same, but it brings up the same questions. It's not black and white, and that's what makes this case tough. The jury is hearing a lot of messy, emotional stories. So how were they reacting to all of this? From what I could see, the jurors were locked in, very focused on every word Capricorn said. At different times, they shifted their focus between her and the lawyers, either the prosecutor or the defense attorney. I kept wondering what they were thinking as they heard about threats, guns, and talk of bodies being dumped in the East River. This was coming from someone who worked closely with Diddy, someone on the inside. And the jury, they didn't show much on their faces, but they were paying attention. Before I let you go, there was one more thing that happened before Capricorn testified. It involved DNA evidence, female DNA, found on the Molotov cocktail used in the Kid Cudi car fire. That's a huge detail if they're trying to prove Diddy or someone close to him set that fire. Right. So this happened first thing in the morning before the jury was brought in. They were talking about forensic testing that's expected to come up during the testimony of investigator Jimenez.
Jimenez is with the Los Angeles Fire Department, and he's supposed to testify next. The government said they didn't want him to be questioned about fingerprints or lab results. That's because he didn't personally test the evidence. He just read the report. That report, they said, was only 2 pages long. The government argued that Jimenez shouldn't be allowed to testify about results he didn't analyze himself. But the defense pushed back. They said they planned to ask about the DNA profile that showed up because it matched a woman. And the government said, we're not even sure if there was just one profile. They claimed there could be more, but the defense argued they weren't going off the rails. They just wanted to bring it up fairly. The judge ended up overruling the government's objection. That means, for now, the DNA evidence can be brought up during Jimenez's testimony. But the judge also said he might revisit that ruling later. We thought Jimenez would take the stand today, but Capricorn's testimony took the whole day. So Jimenez will probably testify tomorrow instead. Right, and who else is expected to testify tomorrow? We know an LAPD officer will take the stand. And of course, Investigator Jimenez is also on deck. There's also a man named Damon Nash, who's expected to testify. And there was one more name, but they were talking so fast, I didn't catch it. Altogether, 4 witnesses are supposed to appear tomorrow. But that depends on how long the cross-examinations take. Sometimes they drag on way longer than expected.